Grace and peace, everyone. Welcome to the stream for tonight for the mental health edition for the church experience, the women's edition. On tonight, I have some lovely ladies with me on tonight. I'm going to ask everyone to unmute themselves as we get ready to dive into this conversation on tonight um, with this lovely panel. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Dr. Lloyd.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Tarasha Lloyd. Background is in social work. I've been in the field now 17 years. I have a doctorate of social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker as well. And so my last 8 years in the field have been spent in practice.
Thank you. And next, we're going to ask Pastor Carter to introduce herself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ashley Carter, and I also have a background in social work, a bachelor's in social work. I have spent over a decade working with the homeless population, at-risk youth, and currently I'm serving in our ministry, just helping in any way that I can help, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you. Next, we're going to ask Pastor Rushing to introduce herself.
Good evening. That pastor word threw me off. Good evening. My name is Michelle Rushing. I too have a background in social work. My bachelor's is in social work. I have a master's of divinity from Perkins School of Theology here in Dallas, Texas. And I am currently in the proposal stage, of my marriage and family therapy degree, because I'm really passionate about mixing theology and psychology. I was formerly in formal ministry, but I have since found my calling in mental health. I think that's all. I've worked with individuals with severe mental health conditions, so bipolar, severe schizophrenia, major depression, all of those. But I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm excited.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Ms. Jones introduce herself.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? I'm so glad to be amongst this wonderful group of women and our pastor, Bishop Ficken. I'm Elena Jones. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and I have a bachelor's in social work, a master's in social work, and I've just presented to do my PhD in social work. So we'll see what happens with that. Keep going. I've been in practice now since 2003. I've been in North Carolina since 2007. And I have worked with the Durham County Police Department. I was the first clinical social worker to be on the ground, boots and running with the community. I've also done some practicing in Houston, Texas for a little while. Not long. I'm currently working now in Durham County Social Services, but in private practice, I work for a faith-based organization that does mental health virtually only. We only do it in a virtual platform. So I service all clients, and my background specialty was in homeless veterans with comorbid issues and concerns, and primarily focusing on women, but I do and I have worked with men and children and family, and I'm so glad to be here. And I have a license in chemical addiction specialty.
Dr. Miles is with us today, but she's in the back studio off camera. She's not feeling well, but she will be joining us via chat. So if there's any questions related for her, she will be answering those via chat, and we thank her for attending on today. So we're going to dive right into the questions. One of the main reasons I wanted to hold this panel was because I noticed one of the things when I took my sabbatical from ministry is that we had too many pastors and those in leadership roles in the church committing suicide, literally leaving out of their pulpit and going home and committing suicide. So mental health definitely was not being addressed in the church. And as a pastor myself, and even now as a bishop, seeing, ministering to people, and helping them get their deliverance, but yet you're going home and dealing with your own things that you have to deal with. And we're just not dealing with, I don't think as a church as a whole, we're just not dealing with mental health as a church as we should. I think we cover up a lot of the conversations. And I think we really just want to have a healthy conversations and really figure out how to bring those conversations to the forefront of the church. So we're going to dive right into this conversation on today. My first question for the panel is how can clergy recognize mental health concerns in their congregation? And I'm going to let anyone that wants to answer this question just jump in. How can clergy recognize mental health concerns in their congregation?
I'll start first. Okay, I think a clear indication that you're having issues in your congregation is an uptick in your pastoral counseling. If you start seeing trends of maybe more marital counseling or involvement with other things in the church, but I think it's the trends really for you. You start seeing more of these things, then you have to see what the root of that is. Where are these things stemming from?
I would say I think one way to for clergy to recognize mental health is to become competent in it. Because if we're being really honest, as someone who was in formal ministry for several years, mental health is not a discussion. Like we talk about the woman who grabbed Jesus's garment, we don't talk about what her diagnosis was. Like we don't, we talk about the man that was Jesus cast out the demonic entities, but we don't talk about how even that can be looked through a mental health lens. And I won't get on the whole our demons mental health. Like I'm not even gonna touch it. But I will say like building a competency, at least knowing the top 3 basic mental health concerns that are in your congregation, and then actively partnering with the mental health professionals in your area. I think so often we enclose ourselves in the stained glass, so to speak, and we just don't think that there's a whole other world out there that could be a resource to us.
I definitely would agree with that. The awareness of knowing that you are competent in a skill base, there's evidence base to what you're doing. In addition to that, I would say, yes, you want to check the trends for those that are entering into counseling, but you also want to look at the trends of when people are tapering off from going to church, attending church, engagement. Have they had a reduction in engagement in the church environment? Are they reducing? Not saying that people don't have times that they reduce when they engage in their extracurricular activities at church, but you can see the body language, the drawback, the seclusion, the isolation. I think the question that we have a tendency not to ask is what happened to you? What we ask is what's wrong? Something has happened. Something has intervened in their lives and has made a substantial change. So whether that's trauma or abuse or, whatever that is, are we looking for the signs as trained clinicians? We need to have someone that's in part of our body of ministry to be looking while everyone else, not that you're not praying, you should be looking.
I just wanted to kind of also just piggyback on everything that everybody has said, which is I'm in 100% in agreement. I just really being very simple. We got to know the people. I think one of the things about that I'm seeing is we don't know those who labor among us. Like sometimes children can tell the story of what's going on in their house by their actions, like you said, being aware, but also just knowing, like you said, when somebody's slowed down on coming to church or you haven't seen them in a while, and just really making it our business, being intentional about calling and about just the basics, because even if you don't know the signs and the trends and all of that, but those that labor among you. And I know right now there are congregations that are many, but I feel like it is our responsibility to train people like the elders or whoever you have, however you have your church staff, no matter how big or small, to be able to identify, oh, this person didn't show up for this, or they're normally here, or they looked a certain type of way, and go in the extra mile to have that conversation. Because even if you don't know, the trends, and I do believe you should, get educated. I'm all for it. But at the end of the day, you still got to know who's in your congregation. You got to know when somebody shows up out of the blue and they're sitting in the back of the church and we all kind of like talking to people that we're normally talking to. They showed up for a reason. And that could be, something dealing with mental health and all those things. So I just kind of echo, know those that labor among you, know the people in your church, the kids, they show up and they're different. That could be a sign that something's going on either with them or, in their home. And so, that would be my little add in to that question.
Thank you. And Dr. Miles wrote, I think being educated on basic mental health, mental wellness through programs such as mental health first aid would be also a good thing for churches to have. So that's a good point. Jumping into the next question, how are you disrupting practices that encourage Black women to overgive? And how are you supporting Black women with holding boundaries and practicing self-care? That's a loaded question.
Woo!
It's
Let's
a
just all
loaded
sit
one.
back and just, whoo! I'm sorry.
I hope you brought your tea tonight because I'm going deep here. So, and this is just for
I'm
the
sorry.
women. So,
Can I have one more comment on the last question?
Yeah,
Just one
yeah,
more. I
yeah.
tried to catch you before you moved. I'm sorry. But like even I always think applicable. Like, yeah, we can talk in theory, but what can clergy applicably? That's not a word, but it's gonna be tonight. How can clergy like physically do something? And I'm thinking like the way our institution, the church institution is set up, we have the hierarchy and all the people that are supposedly under. Like, why is the clergy person, the highest person, expected to be the only one that recognizes these things? One way that is in my opinion, is a healthy way is that whoever is the head also has people under them that knows how, that trains to recognize, and then those people have people under them, because the pastor can't see the whole village.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, we have
Right.
all these small groups, we have all these ministries. Like somebody needs to pay attention that brother so and so hadn't been here in a couple of weeks. Somebody needs to say, hey, so and so over what mental health ministry. Sister so-and-so said that she was thinking about not being here anymore and she wanted to go to heaven. Like we need to, as a community, not expect the leader to be the only one
Yes.
that is capable and competent. Like it is time. Okay, let me get on my soapbox.
Wait. Let me agree with you. And I like what you said, and Bishop knows that I'm about behavior-specific practices to put in place to make some changes.
Mhm.
And in the church that I am so blessed to be a part of, we have small groups. We have accountability partners.
Mhm.
And I was talking to my pastor about, look, I may not be able to be a clinician in this environment for my own reasons, but I will say that these are things that we can do. And my accountability partner texts me, and he knows that most of the summer I travel. So he was just checking in. Hey, just checking in. Is it travel that you're not here? Is it anything else? And then we have what we call a WIC moment, which you started from Women in Crisis or Women in Christ, to say, hey, WIC means I need something. WIC means I'm struggling. And I said, nope, not having a WIC moment, just taking a personal mental health wellness day. Like I took off today for mental wellness, for me to restore. And I so agree with you. We need to be a body, not a head, a body of Christ to reach out and identify, acknowledge, and engage. Like I may see something from the seat I'm in that Bishop may not see, or you may not see, or someone else may not see. And then those parts of the body come together and say, okay, we did a wellness check on everybody. And I noticed so-and-so who is coming every Sunday, who is sitting next to her husband or is sitting here, but didn't look, the body language was off. And I just wanted to like check in and see what that looks like. And it's not being intrusive, it's being concerned. So I just,
no, I agree. Thank you, girl. Bishop Pickney, how free can we be?
Very free.
Like all the slaves can read now. You know what I'm saying? Like we all can. We don't have to rely on the one slave that could read. Like I think, unfortunately, because of our cultural history, it's trickled down that we look to this one person to do everything. And it's like you were saying, Dr. Jones, I want to make sure I get
call me doctor, so when I get it, I can call you back.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to give you
so lame, but that's fine.
But like, there's so many of us that go to church in an individualistic mindset that we are so tunnel vision that we completely don't see the person sitting right next to you struggling. Yeah, they turned around and greeted their neighbor, but you don't know they turned back around and wiped their tears away. Like, what are we doing?
Or they suffered in silence and didn't drop a tear.
Exactly. So
That's
I think one of the things is the clergy can do is have a team under you as much as you can, because there are rural churches that just don't have as many people. I get that. But one of the main things, have a team and have people drill it into the make it a part of the fabric of the congregation that we are looking out for each other.
Drop the stigma that separates us, because it's a stigma that separates us. I'm with you, Michelle. I'm just gonna say, okay, Shay, I'm with you.
Let me repeat the question again for number 2 because it was loaded.
I was about to say, please repeat that one again.
How are you disrupting practices that encourage Black women to overgive? And how are you supporting Black women to hold boundaries and practice self-care?
Well,
because that's a theme amongst Black women to overgive
Who's
and not set boundaries.
I'm gonna piggyback this time. Who's going first?
I will. This is funny that this conversation is coming up. I'm a mother of 3, and my older 2 are 34, and my youngest is 24. And she just shared with me just the other day. She says, "Mom, I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I'm a giver." I said, "Okay, that's good. That's good." She said, "But I struggle with asking for help, and I struggle." Just naming some of the areas she struggles in. So you all know when we were in our 20s, we were trying to figure it out. And sometimes I just really want to turn to her and say, "This too shall pass," but that's not what I can do. So I said to her, in your giving, if you're giving to someone and it turns what you needed to do for yourself into a no, then that might be a no for that other person, or not now. And you turn to them and say, I'm not able to do that right now, or I'm not able to do it at all, because I have now said that I need to put me first. And as Black women, culturally, we are not even on the list. We are not even at the table. We are not even considered. We don't even consider ourselves. And we should know that it's okay. It's not selfish. It's self-full to be first. It's enlightening to say to someone, hey, I actually did something for me, and I don't need to justify it with well, I did it because. Nope. I take care of this because I love me. I didn't do this because I'm on screen with somebody. I didn't take care of me because I'm doing. No, I go regularly get my hair and nails done because that's what I want to do. And it's okay. That's just fine. We don't have that happen enough where we have other sisters saying, oh, you're doing something for you? Good. Or asking, did you do something for you? Did you say no to somebody this week? Ask enough of your sisters around you in church if they said no this week. You will find that they have not said no. That's just my 2 cents.
No, you had 4 or 5 senses.
Yeah, that was 5 cents. Right? That was a nickel.
Because I think another thing is that, like, we talk about self-care, but even expanding what self-care is and letting people know that self-care is whatever you need. Like, if you need a bath, then do a bath. If you need a glass of wine, however people feel about that, have your glass of wine. If you need to go for a walk, do that. But like expanding what we even as Black women think self-care is, or what we've pigeonholed ourselves into, and then also becoming self-aware. Like, I think as Black women are becoming, I do think we are becoming aware of ourselves as a collective. But then as we do that, we also are going to have to be willing to deal with the harmful things that our mothers, grandmothers did that taught us and mirrored to us how not to do self-care, as you were saying. Like, if we got to start dealing with that too, because that's how you really get free. Yeah, you can do all the spa treatments and all that stuff, but if you ain't ask mama why she ain't doing that for herself, and grandmother why she didn't do that for herself, and so on and so on, it's a trend. It's a family.
Yeah.
So
and no, it's self-care
too. I want to piggyback on that. In my practice, it's been a lot of undoing. It's been a lot of really addressing what is it, where did it come from, where did this belief come from, and undoing it. And undoing it, we're like really pulling up from the root those behaviors and those thoughts that have kind of evolved through generations. It's tough. It's really tough. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat with someone and I have my little self-care sheet. It's like a diagram with different bubbles for like emotional, for physical. And I say, what are you doing for yourself? And so many people don't know. they can't really think about a hobby or something that they love or something that they do, because especially us as mothers, we get so fixated on the children and the husband and everybody else. If you're taking care of an elderly parent or you're doing things in the community, you get so fixated on pouring into everybody else that you don't stop to think about, what is it that I want? What is it that brings me joy? So, yeah.
Amen to that. I totally agree.
I guess I'll jump on because it is a loaded question. So I'll jump on the what am I doing to support? Because everything you guys have said has been so good and I'm soaking it up because I feel like it has to be said again and again. Like you all right. You can not cook dinner and read a book for about 30 minutes and your children gonna be all right. You know, now I'm very country and I just can be myself. But I think hearing it over and over, because in our minds, Superwoman, I'm doing 50 things for everybody else. I don't know that no is appropriate. Let's just start there. A lot of us don't even know that you can say no and they're going to be all right. Like, it's not life or death. They're going to be fine. So hearing all of you say that, I think it has to be said over and over. And I love what you said about the defining what self-care is, because I think it looks different for a lot of people. But in the support portion, or part of that loaded question, one of the things that I am very mindful of is the women that are around me, the families that are around me, noticing, if they're getting frustrated with their children, or, just having a moment and say, hey, they can come home with me today, or saying to them, hey, it's been a long day. You had a long day. Here, I'm sending you a cash app. Go get some dinner, or just telling them you got to do this for you and it's okay, and supporting whatever that looks like, whether it's the babysitting or whether it's making sure that, I don't know when you get paid, but if you didn't have lunch today, here's lunch on me. Things like that, very small things, because sometimes you don't really know what they're really dealing with. And for me, I'm a mom, and if I have my last $10, it's gonna go to my child most of the time. That nail money, it's gonna go to those sports. If I gotta choose, I'm just living in real life. If it's pedicure versus my son, who most of the time. So I say that to say that I'm mindful of those things with me. So with other people, families, people that I work with, sometimes it's just the conversation of, hey, let's go walking on our lunch break, just that type of thing. So to me, that's a way that I support, just reminding them that, let's take a moment. You have this time, and how can I help you have the best 15 minutes in this crazy work environment, because I see you're frustrated. I see that meeting did a little something to you. So we can't go have no drinks in the middle of the day, but what we can do is go walk for 30 minutes, and just come back and kind of refresh. So those are ways that I try to support other women in self-care.
I want to add something else to that. Something that I really have noticed where that is a major issue is grief, like losing a loved one. And it's so commonplace for Black women to just pick up, or, you see memes all the time. We don't have time to cry. There's so many other things to do. I had to learn that in person. I had to check myself, but I also had to really work with all my clients and how we handle grief. Like Ashley was saying, just knowing when to take a break. I remember when I lost my father, I got to a point where I would let my daughter's in 6th grade, and I would just let her, at that time she was 8, she was riding through the house on her hoverboard, eating cereal, and I would lay in my bed and write or play music. It would just be those days where you have to allow yourself to be. And so I had to learn that personally, and I really, really push my clients, especially my Black female clients, to just be, because we're taught to just pick up and keep going in some of the most critical moments in life where we need a moment and we're not taking it.
Yes, Dr. Lloyd, and I saw Alana put the link in the chat. Like, I totally agree with you. As someone who went through grief, back in 2016, I lost a dear of my fiance at the time, and I thought I was doing self-care until I wasn't. Until and you don't realize how important self-care is until you don't do it. And burnout is real, and burnout is just another layer of depression. And I don't think you can't even recognize yourself in those moments. So filtering through that, having that one thing that you continue to do, like you were saying, the journaling or crocheting or something, that one thing, and you may not be able to do a lot of self-care, but that one thing will get you through until you can do more. Because it wasn't until I physically could not get up and do anything because I was so burned out. Because instead of taking my time to grieve, I went and started a business. And then I went to school. And then don't get me wrong, I'm gonna be grateful for my doctorate, but also, I did this and I did that. I was trying to do, because you're trying to fill up that time and you think that's helping you grieve.
Yes.
But in actuality, it's further depleting you because you take so much from us in the first place. So I love that you said that. Grief is real.
I love
grief
for you
will wait
shared.
on you.
Alana, you said you shared that. That was something. I have a therapist. And
Me too.
Same. Me too. She beat me up on Monday.
Yes. Anytime I have a client who is going through grief, I share that with them. And you're so right, Michelle, because I promise you, I lost my father during COVID, and I was building my practice. I was working from home. And so I just dove in. Bonuses and taking multiple clients, interstate, different states. And my therapist was like, no, ma'am. Because she's a sister too. She's like, no, ma'am, you will crash and burn. You have to stop. And I did. And so that is when I said, okay, let me check myself. So it's so important to be.
And grief will wait on you.
Yes.
Keep working. It'll wait for you. It will stop at the door. You know how folks be waiting on you I was waiting on you at the door. It'll be waiting on you at the door. It'll be waiting for you.
You gotta go through them steps.
Yeah, you got to go through the process. What I will say, my daughter and my son were here I had a huge family function here in my home where I just got my cousins together. We just got 30 cousins from 5 states. We just got together. And when it ended, my daughter said to me, we decided that you need to take a week out of the month that you don't help anybody, just a week. You don't help anybody, and I get energy from supporting and helping others, but I also need to replenish and charge my battery. So this is my week. I'm supposed to leave tomorrow to go to the beach, but I've had a week where I didn't do anything but sleep or change channels. My favorite thing to do is laundry. I just sat and did some laundry and just listened to the washing machine, soothe my soul. That was just good for me. But we, in our leadership capacity, need to diminish ourselves to the core basics of who we are to replenish. That means strip it all away and go back to the basics of who you are. So this is some good conversation.
Yeah.
I think I'm sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
I really feel, Dr. Jones, what you were saying about grief, because I do feel like it's a very heavy conversation. And I want to know, what does it look like when you say grief will wait on you? Because you said that, and in my mind, I have an idea of what you're saying, but just in case it creeps up anybody that's watching, and like all of you are saying, I just jumped back into, and I did this and I did that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
For everyone is different, but I will say, so I got to kind of give a backstory to get to the answer to your question. I am from Buffalo, New York. My father's home is 3 doors from the grocery store that was shot up, and all the kind of chaos, and people that I know were impacted by that. And my bonus mom, who was a social worker as well, has been gone now 2 years. It'll be 2 years in January. And she passed, and I just dug into my community and what can we do and what can we do. I go see my dad. I'm in the grocery store talking, schmoozing. A month later, the same place I was standing at, a person was killed. And I was like, I'm going to go down and be in the community activism and get in there and do what I need to do. And I went for every month for a year, just past the anniversary. I was there visiting, and grief was literally waiting for me when I realized I had not processed what transpired. I had not processed it. So when I say it's waiting on you, the full-on flood of emotions of that could have been me. I was in the grocery store complaining to the security guard who's friends with me, the one that was killed, saying, why I ain't got cilantro in the hood? Imagine I ain't got cilantro. What's wrong with the cilantro? Complaining. And a year later, I went into the store to see the memorial. Had not been, got there, and they had cilantro. And before I knew it, I was weeping in tears and sobbing because grief was standing at the daggone cilantro waiting on me because I had not processed with my own self what the heck had happened to this massive group of people, because I was part of the first responder thought process. I'm a social worker. I'm a first responder. I used to work for the police department. I need to get in here and see what's different and make a difference and talk about a change and how giving out food ain't enough. Like, what can we do? So when I say it waits on you, you can push, you can go to work, you can overwork, you can get 25 different degrees, you can date 25 different people, you can't shop it away, sex it away, cry it away. You can't do nothing with to get away from it, because God's going to let it meet you, because God wants to bring you through it, not push it away from you. He wants you to walk through it with him. And I'm holding my favorite book, but this book right here, Scripture Keys, Lord have mercy. This got me through where I literally took the problem that I was trying to process and took a scripture as a prescription to the problem. Lord have mercy. I was like, okay, I'm sad and I don't know why. I'm frustrated and I don't know why. I'm angry that they're giving food and stuff to our community when our souls are hungry, when our spirits are weak and depleted. I was just angry. And then I had to realize I'm going through the stages of it. So the stages will wait on you. You sit in one stage and just feed to it. And then God says, now when are you done feeding that stage? Because now I'm bringing the next one. So that's, I hope what I answered your question. That's what I mean why it waited on. It'll be waiting for you a year later.
Yes. Dr. Lloyd, did you have some? Because I know I'm
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Because Alonda was spot on. I went through something very similar. And when it's funny, we're talking about grief, because I think as Black women in general, we grieve so much, and most of it is not about somebody dying. We grieve all these other parts of us, or the way that the world sees and treats us. We grieve the fact that when we walk, we do all these, get all these degrees and all these accolades, and still when we walk in the door, we're the last one to be considered for the job. But I digress. But yes, I like, it's so important to her point. Like, grief really does wait on you. And I hadn't heard it in that phrase, but I experienced it. Like, I was telling my cohort one time, like there were things about my grieving process that, had God revealed them to me in the beginning, full transparency, I would not be here, because it would have been too much to handle in that moment. I wasn't, I'll say, equipped, and I hadn't swept away some of the other stuff that was on top of the deep stuff. So God literally took it little by little. There's some stuff that I've had to process in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, because it'll be 7 years in November. The last 2 or 3 years, that had it come up on day one, Terrell State, which is a mental hospital here in Texas, Terrell State, that's where I would have been, period. Or I would not be here, because I don't think we understand that there's layers to this. Like, it's not just someone died. Someone who held a space in my life is now gone, or a job that gave me a certain affirmation is gone, or, all these different, let's look, Bishop said we could be free. Like, like, this relationship I had that I thought was going to be forever is now gone. So there's a grieving process and all of these things that we try to get over it. Like, I think all of us have exclaimed that the first thing we did was jump into Superwoman mode. I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, which is low-key avoidance, but whatever. But like, we did these things because as Black women, that's what we're conditioned to do. We're conditioned to keep going. We're not allowed to stop. We're told we can't stop. We hold the backs of Black men. We hold the backs of Black children. We hold the backs of other POCs. We hold the backs of white people. We just hold the back of everybody. And then we're looked at when we need a break. Shakara Richardson and Gabby, when we need a moment, we're told that something's wrong with us. But I say that to say, I think that one of the parts of the conversation when we talk about self-care in Black women is that we don't often see grace and compassion as self-care. Like we look at the everyday things we can do, but giving myself grace and giving myself compassion was more of a self-care activity and occurrence that blessed me more than any facial, more than any nail, more than anything. But in that moment, when I felt my weakest, telling myself, it is okay for you to feel weak right now. Because your weakness is actually a strength. If we're going to talk about scripture, when I am weak, I am made strong in God.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm never weak, who really is my strength? Like if I'm always trying to be the strong, okay, y'all. See, I done got it. You just
One more thing, please. I want to piggyback on what you just
Yes.
said. You're talking about that positive self-talk. Okay. I always tell the women, that I work with and with myself, I have to stop and say, if this was my mother or if this was my best friend, what would I say? Because sometimes we beat ourselves up and we just keep going. But what would you say to somebody else that was going through this, that you loved and that you cared for? So that is what you have to say to yourself. That's how you have to practice speaking to yourselves. When you said that, Michelle, I was like, yes, that positive self-talk is so important for us.
Grace and compassion are acts of resistance, in my opinion. If you can't, and I think back to the question, so for us to support Black women is asking my sis, I ask my best friend all the time, when's the last time you relaxed on yourself? When's the last time, you're doing all these different things? When's the last time you just gave yourself a little grace? And I think that's one way that as Black women, we can support other Black women, is at least asking, when's the last time you cared about yourself? Or when's the last time you didn't beat yourself up for A, B, C, and D? All right.
And I think it's important for people to also understand that grief doesn't always show up with crying and tears.
Nope.
There has been moments when I've thought about my grandfather and I started laughing, but I'm actually sad.
Yeah.
And I'm uncontrollably laughing, but I'm actually tearing up on the inside. And the laughter eventually turns to tears and me actually mourning. And I feel like I'm sitting at his funeral all over again. So people just have to know that grief, sometimes grief does turn into anger. Yes, I've experienced that. Sometimes you even question God. Why did this even happen? Why did this even happen? I know I'm not supposed to question you, but I'm angry that you took this person from me.
And who told us to lie that we can't question them?
I was just gonna say I have questions because one of my biggest prayers these days is, God, make it make sense. That's my prayer. Make it make
sense. Lord, make this make sense to me, because I don't know about y'all. I have a phenomenal relationship with my earthly father. I really do. I think it makes it easier for my heavenly father. But I literally be talking to my father saying, now really, come on now. This what we doing today? This what we do? This what this is about? And I'm with you, Michelle. Let's come on. We could just be transparent and real and just naked before each other. This crap ain't easy. And sitting up and putting on a good, pretty face or picture perfect presentation is the biggest lie we tell ourselves as we sit there with our aromas on, but really stinking inside. Ooh, come on, y'all. You sitting there pissed off, but you grinning through it. How you doing today, girl? I'm blessed and highly favored. Really? I don't know that I am today. Today, I might be a little highly frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, and you're right. You laugh literally to tears, because inside it's like I'm laughing the Joker hysterical laugh because I'm so angry at the loss that I haven't processed through my filter, who is Christ, because that's your filter. That's your filter. That this is a loss. And on the filtering, when you said that about being weak, that is the greatest strength. The weakness in me is my greatest strength. That's when I have the most power. Watch out, I'm dangerous when I'm weakest, because that's when I'm laying before him, not on my knees, but I'm on my literal face, laying before him, travailing for myself and others, trying to stop figuring it out so God can just show me. So he can just show up. Because when we trying to figure it out, man, that's a mess.
Yeah. And I know I keep talking about grace, but I think that's just one of the prevailing themes that I've realized since we're talking about grief and self-care is that, I think the biggest act of grace is that we need to remember and give it to ourselves to remember we were never supposed to experience this. Depression, grief, sadness. If we looking at it just from the biblical perspective, everything was perfect until the fall. So we were
Amen.
never, as human, as creation, supposed to experience this. So the fact that we're experiencing it and still getting up every day and trying our best to get through it, that's an act of grace. Like, because we're not supposed to be able to handle this. You know, sometimes I think we need to look at God a different way. Like, we were never supposed to be experiencing the fact that we are, and we're making it through. That's triumphant in and of itself. At least that's how I think of it. So
I agree.
my theology is what it is. I done grew some.
Your theology is a little real. I agree.
With that being said, and let's talking about grace and you guys saying how you should really, practice self-care. I'm gonna skip a couple questions and I'm gonna dive right into this one. What stigma lays around the term strong Black woman?
I already put it in the chat. Superwoman is a lie. That's the biggest lie ever told. That's the biggest lie I've ever seen in my life. That we are super women. That's a lie. We are superb, but we ain't trying to be out here and be super, because super means so much. I got to do everything, be everything. It's such a lie. That's a lie. That's all I can say, y'all. And I like to call a lie a lie. That's all I can say.
And really, honestly, being a superwoman or being super, it takes away the power from God.
Yeah.
Because He is everything. He is the one that we're supposed to be leaning on. He's the one that's going to help us get through these things. So if we are believing in ourselves as a mortal that we're able to do all these things, and then it's like we're replacing Him in omnipotence and being able to do everything. So that's my thought on it.
I'm with you on that one. Yes, yes.
I like what Dr. Miles has said in our chat. I know everybody can't see it, but when she says it holds us back in reality, I think that is absolutely correct, and I agree. And I just want to make sure your voice was heard in that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Amen.
She also said it's pride in so many ways. And yet I think that goes back to God, like letting God do what God does and not us in our human ways do what we're doing, which is limited.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny how we associate pride with men, but not with women.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, y'all. We carry so much pride. It's like a cape. It's like a cape flowing behind you. It's like this cape. With your superwoman self, with this pride cape on.
And then you going home like self-medicating because you've been out priding all day.
Pride all day.
And don't get me wrong, I think there maybe was an initial strength behind the strong woman stereotype initially.
Mm-hmm.
However, as humans do, we screw stuff up, right? So it went into this space that now, if now it's boss lady, or now it's I don't even know the words, whatever's on TikTok, child. And I'm not that old, but I'm old in my life, in real life. But like, there's so many of these narratives that tell us we got to be a boss, and we got to do this, and we got to do that. And it's like, but you exhausted. You're exhausted trying to be seen as this strong Black woman when all you want to do is really just be held by somebody and told that everything's going to be okay. Like, what?
Right there. You stop right there. I just told my daughter this. My husband we get fall moments. So if I say, babe, I just need a minute to fall, that means he holds me until I let him go.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! Best gift on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I thought I was going to fall apart. Need a moment to fall, y'all. I told my pastor when I moved here, I was in the wilderness. It felt like for 6 years, but I didn't belong to a church. And then when the guy finally sent me to a place where I was there, I said to him, this is such a safe place to fall. That's what the hospital church is supposed to be. That's what the body's supposed to be, a safe place to fall apart, fall to pieces, fall whatever. It's supposed to be the safe place. So that then when he picks up the pieces and puts us back together, we're not piecemeal, we're whole. Come on. We whole when he puts it back together. But you know what we can't do? When you're full of pride, he ain't doing that. Because he's like, God's sitting there. I literally be looking at my God going, you sitting up here talking some, yeah, you got it. Go ahead. You got that. Go on, Superwoman. You got it. I'm gonna sit back and eat some popcorn. That's what God be saying to us and our shenanigans. That's what I call them. Spiritual shenanigans. It's like, sit down. You ain't equipped a tool to do nothing but lean on Jesus. That's all I'm equipped and tool to do. And the sooner we grasp that, the sooner we'll get a handle on our own things and have our private, what I call the private victory. Because there's a victory inside waiting on you to meet it. God has already put it there. He's just waiting on you to arrive to it. And part of arrival is just saying, I ain't got it all, Lord. I ain't super. I'm only great in you. I can only do things through you. Like, that's where we want to be. And this is something I really, not to the question, but this is something I want to say about this. Someone said to me at work, oh, Elena, you always center stage and people doing this. I said, look, I can't help that my light shines because I ain't trying to shine a light on you. I'm just sitting here shining on me and I'm benchmarking to where I was yesterday. I'm trying to benchmark up. I'm trying to level up on me and looking at what God is trying to get me to do about me to be better. Not better for someone, but better for him. How can I be better for Christ to be a light onto their path? And I ain't got to say Jesus' name one time, but you need to know that I'm walking with a light of him in me. We got to also not be afraid to support other sisters. Sisters don't support each other like they should. That's a big issue. A big issue. Can you have a full conversation and give a full support to a sister without giving what I call a scorpion dig? You know how they come behind you with that stinger after they don't gave you a compliment. Come on, y'all. We got to do that too.
So can we dive into that though? I know that's not one of the questions, but can we dive into that? Like how divisive Black women are right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's dig into what's really going on. Why are we so divisive? You know, what is it going to take for, yes, we do show up for each other. We do this, but there's still an internal division that I think is hindering the Black woman from like Dr. Miles said, accepting and recognizing our feelings and our struggles and our need. Like there's this division that I may feel this way, but I don't trust old girl. I don't trust her enough to tell her, or, she kind of said such and such last time. I don't know how, you took it a certain way, but you didn't go ask her how she really meant it. So
intent and impact. Come on now. What was her intent? Just because it impacted you that way doesn't mean that was her intent.
Exactly.
I'm with you digging in.
I just wonder what y'all thoughts are. Like, what is the device that has the strong Black woman like added to this division? And Bishop, I'm not trying to take over your job. It came to my heart.
You're good.
Okay.
I'm in agreement. I think a lot of it has to do with we so busy trying to one up each other that you don't realize if you just be you, because ain't nobody good at being authentically you but you. I'm the best authentically me I could be. Because if I be anything else, I'm fake at it anyway. I'm just a sad little carbon copy of whoever. I'm a sad carbon copy of Miss Michelle. I'm a sad carbon copy of Dr. Tasha. I'm sad and carbon copy of that. I'm not really me. I think the thing is, we have been told since before slavery that we have to be this thing for this population, for this group, instead of being authentically ourselves, and we are enough. I tell every woman I meet, you enough even in your mistakes. You enough even in your brokenness. You enough right where you standing, because that's all God wants to move you to the next level, is to be right where you're at. So I constantly tell my 24-year-old daughter, honey, you enough. Right where you at. You enough. And everybody around you enough. And what they got to bring is a blessing. So say thank you. And don't say nothing else, because what we do is say, well, I want to thank you. But Bishop, no, I shut down gossip. Shut it down. Nope, stop. Listening to it, speaking on it, spreading it, I shut it down. Let's encourage some truth. Yeah, she was a little depressed. She went through something. My daughter was Winston-Salem State Miss Sophomore, and went through the biggest depression state of her life during that. You know what I said to her? In the psych ward in Winston-Salem. I said, you know what? You are enough right here. And this is going to be the thing that change people, because they're going to see this big picture of you. And then they're going to say, well, who are you really? And then you get to say, you know what, the Lord would have me go through this struggle to help the next person that's struggling with depression, the other person that's struggling with anxiety, because that makes you whole, not and doing your holiday wave, that ain't what make you whole. It's your brokenness.
I was just going to chime in on this particular conversation. I really do believe that the problem, when you talk about why can't we support fully, what is it about us that can't give? I think it has everything to do with knowing who we are and knowing our own identity. When you, as a woman, as a person, not just what somebody said, but actually, this is me. I do this because I'm like, when I said I'm country, I know that about myself. So when you hear me talk, I'm going to talk a certain way, but really taking that time to know Ashley, to know what makes me tick, to know what are all of those things that make me, so that I don't have to compete with you, so that I can really be excited about you, because together, me and you, we're going to do something major. But part of the issue is, I believe, well, I think social media is amazing. I think that God has given us so many resources to be known and all those things. We spend so much time looking at what other women are doing and out, building ourselves up to someone else's identity. We really don't know who we are, and we don't take the time to really figure that out. So it's very easy for me not to fully support you, because I really don't know who I am, and I'm still trying to figure that out. So we're now in our 40s, 41. We're now we're saying, oh, that's why I do this. Oh, this is really what I like, because for so long I've been looking at what you're doing. Okay, so now I got to go get this doctorate because she did, and I'm going to go be a part of this because this person did. So then when it's time for me to give that high five and you got this and all of that, I don't feel a certain type of way, because I have my own race to run, and I don't have to measure myself up to you, because I got to just, what you said, I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday. That has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with what your path is. And so when I know who I am and the path that's set for me, and we're Christians, everybody on here has been, talking about the Lord, but who did he create me to be? What gift did he give me? How can I fully flow in that? Because it's going to complement my sister. It's going to be something that is going to bless her, but then she's going to have something that might bless me. She's going to know something about what I need, those pieces, and we together are going to be a major force. But it's only when you really know. The thing that keeps me from fully supporting you is I don't know who I am. I have an identity issue. I am the person who, a little jealous because I saw you get that award, or I saw you be this whole person, and now I'm all in a frenzy, not really knowing what it took for you to do that, not really knowing the issues that you had to be that person, not knowing all of those problems, the behind the scenes story that your husband had told you for 15 minutes yesterday because you literally thought it was. I'm trying to be you so much that I don't know who I am. And so I can't fully support that person that I'm seeing today. And so I just wanted to kind of, you were like, let's dive into it. So I really feel that way, because I do feel like when we know who we are, I tell people all the time, I don't care if I'm preaching, singing, or on a platform with anybody. This is who I am. This is what I have to give, whether you like it or not, whether you feel like it's great or not. This me. You're gonna get me, whether I'm in the I'm doing my 8 to 5 job or my side hustle. This is who I am. And all I can be is me. And I can absolutely feel excited about Tarasha doing her thing in Jacksonville. Like, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. That's dope, because she has a path and I have one, and I don't have to compare myself to her. And I can be like, you guys know, I'm over here on this chat like, yes, go for it, because I know who I am, and I'm excited about who you are, and looking forward to seeing all of the things that you will do in your path. And I just think that, that piece will help us to really unite. It will help us to really encourage and mentor other women. It will help us to have that self-care. Like, to me, all of that, I can be naked and grieve and be broken and all of that, because at the end of the day, this is who I am. This is me. And I need you to understand, I'm not in competition with you. And when I get through this, I'm going to be like, yo, you are amazing, And, that's my spill on it. You got to know who you are. You got to know it, and you have to know it for yourself, not just what somebody's saying. It's awesome to say it to somebody else. But for me, when I really realize, girl, you all right. You from the backwoods where don't nobody know you. And you had these opportunities. Don't know why. I'm on here with all of y'all are doing what I'm supposed to thought I was gonna do until God was like, no, you good. Halt. Why am I here? He's gonna put you where you need to be, and you don't have to compete with anybody, and you don't have to feel anything about your sister because you know who you are.
I want to backtrack about 5 minutes, Bishop.
Go ahead.
I heard Elena mention the safe space and the time to be, you said fall time with your husband. And I wanted to connect the dots that the pride and the independence or hyper independence and the trauma, all of that, I think also comes from a lack of a safe space for so many women. You have to take that into consideration as well. Everybody won't have that fall person. Everybody hasn't got to that point in life where they know that God is the ultimate fall person. So they're dealing with it. And I'm just going to leave it there. I just wanted to connect the dots on that because I was hearing it and I was like, oh, yeah, safe space. We didn't bring that up. But go back to where we were at.
No, I think Ashley brought up a very, very, and I agree with you with the safe space, Dr. Lloyd. And Ashley brought up a really, really good point about self-awareness. And I think the more you know yourself, the more you become aware when you're placed in situations that are causing you to not be yourself or question yourself or try to be something else in order to be seen. Really, really quick, I remember when I was in formal ministry, out of all of the ministers that were on the roster, it was the women in ministry who were treated a different way. And, regardless of denominational beliefs of women in ministry, it was the women who were told. I distinctly remember my pastor at the time telling the women during a preacher's meeting, women need to, what's the word? Not cry in the pulpit. Y'all need to watch your emotions. That's what it was told to us. Like, women, y'all need to watch your emotions. And I bring that up because that breeds division as well. I'm trying to bring it full circle. There's so much division within women within the church, and especially women within ministry, because not only am I a woman in ministry and I got to fight the patriarchal system that this is, but now I also have to, or within that struggle, I now have to, quote unquote, outshine my other female minister. I have to, in some ways, and I know femininity is a spectrum, but in some ways I have to put my femininity on the back burner and become more masculine so that I can be seen in these spaces. And again, spectrums, I don't want any problems, but we have to, so that causes more division. Like, I remember being in competition, unbeknownst to me, with some of the other younger female ministers around me at the time. And it was because we were pitted against each other. Who's going to be the loudest? Who was going to be able to, preach the best? Who was going to be able to speak in tongues first? All these different things that we put into this church space just continues to create division, when I could have been saying, what has God put on your heart? Let's see if it's on my heart. Maybe we need to be doing a ministry together, or maybe we need to be doing something outside the church. So I think that in this whole conversation of the Black church experience of women and strong women and all this other division, we just, to Ashley's point, knowing yourself will help you recognize when you're being put in spaces that are asking you to divide yourself from other people, or to become something that you're not. And it took me a very long time to detox from church after formal ministry. Because in my mind, one, if I wasn't in church every Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and the other days that aren't created yet, then something was wrong with me. And if I wasn't preaching, if I didn't preach this way, if I didn't hoot and holler, if I didn't do that, I'm just not that person. But if I wasn't doing that, I also wasn't being chosen to be on.
Mhm.
I wasn't being chosen to speak at a certain thing. So seeing, and then now I see my sister or my brother in ministry over here doing what I know I can do, but because I'm not the loudest, I get overturned. So we just have to be self-aware of when people are trying to put you in a space that is contrary to who you are.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, you just took me mentally somewhere when you said that, when you were talking about the divisions, and I read Dr. Miles's statement. It is funny that we go through these things, like Ashley said, we're trying to determine who we are, and we so-called, in quotes, and Bishop know what I mean when I do this. We arrive to things instead of being like this to welcome those that are trying to come through something, to welcome them into this process, like welcome them in. Like reach out for that person and say, you and your quiet space and your quiet voice in the way that you're not loud on everyone else has a place here. Like, are we opening up seats at the table? Skip the table. Let's move the table and bring people into the room. Like, come on, let's all go and come into the room. You know how you in a social gathering, there ain't no table, y'all just holding plates. More gets done, more gets accomplished because there's more people in the room that don't have a table in it. Let's just be in here together and welcome those that we see that are the outliers. And I like what you said about it happens at work, it happens at home, and it works in every space. What am I doing if I do have what I call a more passionate or louder voice, or my presentation is different, to push myself a little out to the side to make a little more room for someone that is not like me? Like, what am I? Because we're responsible now that we know ourselves and so-called know who we are, to now help those along that don't know and welcome them in now as they're getting to know. Getting to know yourself and someone making space for you to have that room to. This book I read called The Dip talks about failing. We don't let people fail. If you get a chance to read The Dip, talk about how go ahead and fail, because it's going to show you something. You learn more from your failures or what you think are missteps than you will ever learn from these exceptional things that you've done, because the things that you've done that people cheering you on about, you don't go back and take a moment to be introspective about them. You do that when something so-called bad happens to you. But what really God is trying to say is, I'm welcoming you to when I tell you it ain't a good thing. What do you need to look at? What do we need to examine? And how can we welcome these women, young, old? Because let's get this also out here on the table. We keep talking about, I'm in my 40s, I'm in this and I'm in that and all of that. But there's some people in their 50s that ain't got here yet. So we're looking at the young ones. We need to look at every age, because maturity is based on experience, not on your number. I'm going to drop the mic and go home. That's it.
Man, you go ahead and pass the collection plate, Bishop.
Maybe I want to be head of the Women's Day committee. You know what I'm saying?
Michelle,
I always want to be super so-and-so that's been doing it for 10 years. Maybe I want to be committee chair,
And I'm going to rub your feet when you finish, Michelle. I'm going to stand at your feet and rub them. Go ahead, girl. Come on.
You guys brought some good points up. But it's a bigger issue than just women. And I'm trying not to chime in. It's hard for me not to chime in. But this is a Black community issue. That crab in the bucket mentality is deep in our community. And it runs deep into the church. It's deep into the church, especially those that are serving in ministry. And me being a bishop since 2015, I have seen it. Man, I'm telling you, I've gone in places and sat in some platforms, and it's like competition. You just like, what you competing for? I'm here to make sure that he gets the glory and the honor. I'm not here to compete with you. I know what gifts and gifts that he's bestowed upon me. My next question to you, ladies, is about our culture. How do you see our cultural background influencing our communication and us, or women, getting treatment? And this is probably going to be more in line with the clinicians probably taking the lead on this one. But how do you see our cultural background influencing our communication and seeking treatment?
Well, guess I'll start. Um, we know we've heard time and time again what happens in the house stays in the house. That's almost the mantra or the anthem for the black family, for the black household, especially the generations before. I applaud the millennials and the people beyond that are working to break that, to change that mindset. But I think that has a whole lot to do with us as African Americans seeking therapy. We were taught you don't tell your business. You don't, especially you don't tell it to strangers. God forbid it's a stranger that doesn't look like us that's in the clinician's chair. And then you think back to the Tuskegee Project. You think back to so many medical mishaps and things over the years in the past that we were subject to. And so there's a mistrust and even mental health services. So I think that has a lot to do with the background of us brown people, seeking mental health care.
Thank you.
I would say, I say this all the time. What goes on in the house stays in the house, and it stays in the house for generation after generation after generation. So I never forget my aunt. I'm from New York State, but my family was brought up in Florida and South Carolina. And one of my aunts used to hang her laundry on the line. And I'd be like, Auntie, you hang your laundry on the line? She said, well, honey, some stuff you got to get out there on that line. And everybody going to have to see it because how else is it going to dry? It's got to be exposed. Woo! Come on, somebody. We do not expose what's happening in a way that strips away the negative stigma of saying what's happening. And I'm not going to lie, y'all. I got two sets of kids. I got the 30-something-year-olds and I got the 20-something-year-olds. So yeah, the 30-something-year-olds, I told you, keep my house stuff here in my house. I did that. And then it became not okay. That I can't keep doing because we're going to keep getting the same results. So if we want something different to happen, we must do something different. And the difference is to start reducing the stigma by saying stuff like holistic wellness, by talking in church about, I have some things, some challenges that I'm dealing with. And that might be anxiety. And everybody is 2 steps from a treatment plan or diagnosis. I don't care what nobody say. We all right there. We right up on that plan. And we need to say it's okay that you're not okay. That you're not okay.
Fake it till you make it. That's the other one. I'm sorry, Bishop.
Fake it till
you
you
gotta
make
stop that. That's another one.
Fake it
on that facade. I know we talked a lot about that in the chat earlier. Dressing it up, making it look pretty, making it look like it's all good, and it's not.
No.
Dr. Miles wrote in the comments, since we don't talk about it, we don't know what it is that when we experience it. Then of course the professionals don't understand. They see anger or attitude instead of depression, or they see a physical complaint, not depression. So you're actually hindering the provider from actually being able to actually help diagnose you because you're not being forthcoming with the information.
And we got to be careful. And I'm with Dr. Miles on this. I will say this. We got to be careful as clinicians when we are having people that say they went to seek therapy. You need to be asking, what was your therapist your color? Because if you my color, it's certain things you're going to present with that I'm be like, well, come on now. They're not argumentative. They're passionate. You know what I mean? Everybody flavors us differently. Because if we as clinicians look at it a certain way, we can shade through and pull away some of those layers that we know is just the Black woman's facade because we Black women. And then we're not giving that an additional diagnosis because they do that to us. They give some of our presentation another diagnosis. Then you're sitting here with a whole menu of stuff. And I'm sitting here most times when I read assessments going, okay, what? That ain't what this is. That's not explosive, this is not intermittent explosive disorder. What is this? No, they got upset because this happened. Okay, they were just upset in that moment. That doesn't mean a whole diagnosis. I mean, what is that about?
Cultural competency is needed.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve for me.
That's true. I can't tell you how many times I looked at files and been like, what?
Let me tell you something, Dr. Tasha, I graduated from University of Buffalo, and I will tell anybody, I had a phenomenal professor who was a white woman who said to me, we will not be throwing a menu of anything towards anybody. We're going to sit down and learn, listen, and filter out through, when that was back when we were doing Access 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on now, back when we was
Yes, Lord.
what we're doing now is different. And the reality is, as a clinician, you need to be ascertaining, is this truly something diagnosable, or it's just something that they are manifesting in the moment? Because some stuff is a moment that we give a lifetime diagnosis to. Because if I see one more kid at 14 diagnosed with bipolar, I'm
Yes.
bipolar, and I'm just sitting here going, everything is that the flavor of the week? Everything is not that. It's not.
And they're overdiagnosed ADHD too now.
Oh, that gets on. Don't even. Look, I'm gonna turn my camera off.
Our kids. We'll be here all night talking.
Turn my camera off. Don't go there with me.
I guess I wanted to add one thing from a clinical treatment perspective is that I was reading an article the other day, and I think one thing that's unfortunately a part of our culture is our socioeconomic status, and a huge part of the lack of treatment or the lack of holistic or positive treatment is access to resources. Like when we look at the statistics of women of color, specifically Black women, we have some of the highest, or not, I'm sorry, we have some of the lowest reported rates, but we have so many symptoms because we don't report. Because we don't feel safe to report. And then sometimes we don't have access to resources to report. If I'm living way across town and the city bus doesn't go by, where I need to go, or there's no clinic in my area, or the clinic that is there is not a positive one, how am I going to get adequate research? I mean, not research, sorry. How am I going to get adequate treatment? How am I going to get to someone that can truly diagnose me? So I think access to resources is a huge part of this conversation, and how there has to be more people that look like us in these mental health spaces, which is really one of the reasons why I'm grateful that God finally called me to mental health, because now I'm a person that looks like the people I want to help. And I think that bridges the gap a little bit right on the surface of access. But I think access to resources is a huge disservice, or we have a huge disservice in that way.
It's fun. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Michelle, because that's so key. And I work for social services in Durham, and I shared with my pastor when we were talking about doing a holistic mental wellness approach. That's one of the first things I said to him was, we need to ensure access is happening, not even access only, engagement. How many people tell people, here's the number, call so-and-so, but how many of us actually get on the phone, dial the number for them, and sit there with them and make sure that, because that process could give anybody a mental health diagnosis, how long it takes you to get connected to services. That in itself will frustrate the bejesus out of you, just trying to engage in services. So part of the component that I offered through my church was, hey, I'm willing to be on the phone. I'm also willing to give a bus card, gift card, Uber, whatever you need to get to where you need to be. Because the first appointment, if they don't have a streamlined way to get in, they're not going to engage. And then when you ask them 2 weeks later, a month later, they're going to say, oh yeah, I called. The question needs to be, did you call? Did you go? And how did it go? That's not what we're asking. So I would totally agree with you. Access is important. Yes, take them if you can. That's right. Take them if you can. Gotta take them if you can.
What role do you guys see the clergy playing to help address mental health within their congregation and the community?
Dropping the stigma, the biggest role possible. Reducing the stigma and saying and calling. You ever heard a young man say, call the thing a thing? Calling the thing a thing. Like calling the thing a thing. Y'all going through? I'm the first one that's going to say, as a clinician, I have had depressive thoughts. I'm going to say it to normalize that it happens for every human being. I may not have wanted to take my own life, But I have had moments where I didn't want to be here. I heard you say that too, Michelle. I didn't want to be here. That doesn't mean I want to die. That just means right now in this space, I don't want to be here because I don't like how it feels. We need to reduce the stigma and welcome stuff. Like when I first got into mental health and I was working for adult education in New York State, they were taught, I was doing education for GED classes. And they kept saying, oh, no one is signing up for the GED classes. No one is signing up for the GED class. I said, okay, well, let's offer computer classes. Computer classes. When they get to the table, I said, oh, you like computer classes? Then I say, oh, I got your name and information. Then when I call you, I say, oh, by any chance, do you have your high school diploma? Oh, you don't? Well, we can incorporate your GED classes with it. Because the stigma is now what? Gone. Because when you have a sign that says GED, when you have a sign that says mental health, for 25 years, I did nails in a nail salon. And I would talk to, as I was going to school, my clients, because if you were a nail tech or a hairdresser, you definitely a therapist, about stigma. Guess when I had the most clients? When my husband and I had a salon side by side. He had a barbershop and I had a nail salon, and they connected in the back. I had more male clients come because they didn't have to walk through my front door. They could come around the back, get their nail services done, and then I would engage them about, you know what? Let's talk about your mental health. How you doing? What's going on with you? But they didn't have to walk through the barriers, or what I call the picket lines of people telling you that ain't nothing wrong with you. And why are you going to the therapist? You know, Black people don't go to the therapist, especially Black men don't go to the therapist. God forbid you're born in the 70s. You definitely ain't going. 1970, 1950, 60-year-old men ain't going to the therapist. You know, crazy. It's just, y'all just crazy. It's just like, no, I'm just human and I can't keep it all together. So the stigma, please, let's work on the stigma and speak about it from the pulpit and give scripture that talks about people in the word who had some issues, because there's enough of them that we can use them as examples.
It's a lot.
Sorry, I didn't want to take over, y'all. That was important to me. that was important to me.
No, Alana, I think you made a good point. And it's one of the things I wrote down for this question was like, you know, one of my favorite scriptures is Revelations 12:11, where it talks about we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the telling of our testimony. Like a lot of times we focus on the blood of the Lamb, but we don't want to tell nobody our stuff because our stuff is going to make us look a certain way. But you don't know how many times, like even on this call, I felt very connected. Once Dr. Lloyd said something about grief, I was like, oh, you know, I felt, had she not shared that, not that I wouldn't have been connected to her, but I wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, okay, she really understands. I think too many times we want to gatekeep, for lack of a better word. We want to gatekeep our story so that we can tell people, or not even tell people, so we can seem like we've never been through anything. And I think when we do share these things in church, I think it's very important that one, you do be careful about who you share with, but that you don't be closed-minded about who you share with, because you never know who is going through or has just come out of what you've been through, or vice versa, and how we can help people. Amen. And I think clergy shouldn't take it personally when people in your congregation is feeling depressed. That's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection of life. Like that's like too many. I've experienced too many pastors that felt a certain type of way when people were struggling in the church, and it's like, it's not about you. You're supposed to be the shepherd. It's not about you. It's about that person. It's not a reflection of your pastoral work.
Mm-hmm. Amen, Michelle. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you.
Something that we do at our church is our pastor talks about, he doesn't preach about it, but he talks about their issues. We know there are issues in our congregation with depression, anxiety, all those things. And what we've done is gotten together people who are professionals that are in our congregation. They don't have to be members, but I don't know all the legal stuff behind it, but he makes it known that if there is someone who does have are dealing with grief, somebody that's depressed or all those issues, because you know people tell the pastor stuff, and he's like, you know, I don't have the strategies, the answers, all of those things, but I can help you. We can pay for it. We can, if you don't have insurance, recognize who's in the congregation. If you don't have insurance, our church will help pay for your insurance and get in the people who are professionals that know what they're doing, and saying, hey, you know, if we have people in our congregation, can we streamline them to you. We're going to make sure they get there, make sure that, if they can't pay for it, that you get paid, things like that. And not necessarily having them come sign up so everybody can see you, it's you, you know what I mean? I don't even know what the process is of how they, kind of navigate through that. I think there may be like a text or something and it's very confidential, but what I've liked about it, and I think this may be one of the first times and I've been in church all my life, that I've heard somebody say, hey, I'm the pastor, but I'm not clinic. Like, there are things that are beyond me, but I want to get you to somebody that you can actually talk to about this thing that you're dealing with. That, yes, I'm going to pray for you, but I want to make sure that we support you ongoing so that you can actually get what you need. And so I think being aware, but also being a resource, like saying, okay, you don't have insurance, right? Exactly what you talked about. How can we help you? Because we know they need to be paid, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the funds to do it, then you're not going to be able to go. And so, that's something that we do to address it, is just making sure that we connect them with professionals. And also, if we can be a resource, if we can financially, because it costs, or if we can find, agencies or organizations, or to say, hey, this is who deals with this thing that you're dealing with.
And Ashley, even just real quick to piggyback, not requiring people to be members of your church in order to receive resources. Like, we have all these people hurting out here, but then sometimes we tell them, oh, we can't help you until you join this congregation. And I just believe we have blood on our hands when we do that. I really do.
Oh, we definitely do. We definitely do. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Dr. Miles included in the chat. During my internship, one of the local churches had a Q&A with mental health professionals, and people were able to submit Qs and have them answered and provide them with resources. So it's very similar to what we're doing tonight. So yes, and I do not agree with that, Michelle. If the person's coming through the door and they need help, if you got the resources, help them. My next question, and we're getting close to the end. How does stigma impact inequities in mental health outcomes in Black women compared to other races and white communities?
Stigma increases them. That's simple.
Yeah, and we're more likely to tell ourselves we can handle it on our own instead of going and seeking help. Like, I'm more like, or we go to the therapist, then the therapist may say one thing that we don't like, and then we don't go back. So it's because, she don't know me, or he don't know me. We get into these things, and we just continue to bring forth this stereotype that we don't go to therapy, we don't do this, we don't do that. And a lot of times it's because we think we can handle it on our own, or we try to self-medicate our symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and there are not enough licensed mental health professionals. And I want to emphasize the word licensed mental health professionals. Licensed, qualified mental health professionals.
Michelle, you are hilarious. And I'm looking at my credentials going, okay, that's the wrong license at the end of that one, but okay.
That's why I'm like, no, I'm in the MFT program. I'll have license after graduation, but no, don't come to me. We don't have enough licensed, qualified, competent people of color in these spaces.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And can you repeat the question one more time? Because I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes. How does stigma impact inequities in mental health outcomes in Black women compared to other races in white communities?
When Black women, the stigma for me is that it increases our opportunity not to level up on them. I'm just telling you, I tell my daughter this all the time. You got your stuff together, you can level up on a whole lot of different cultures and other people. So if they can figure out a way to diminish us, if you can't diminish me educationally, you can't diminish me economically, then why wouldn't you psychologically diminish me? Because that's what's next. They come in for every area that they can get their foothold in. Like the Willie Lynch letter was more than just that. It was all these things attached to it. That's just to get in there. And I'm not a person that jumps to race as a concern or race as my trump card. My trump card typically is someone is always trying to figure out a way to pigeonhole you if you're not paying attention. So pay attention. And Black women, if you're listening, let me be clear. If you're with a therapist and they're agreeing with everything you say, please stop going to them today. Stop going today, because it keeps I want to feel good and hear all these good things.
They're
Sometimes
taking money.
yes, you need to hear some stuff that ain't always what you want to hear. Thank you. The therapist is not your friend. I have to tell that to clients on many of the day. I had to tell a gentleman I'm working with yesterday. I just finally had to tell him, we're here for clinical goals. And if you're not here to work on those, then we're not here to work at all. It's time to move on. You clinicians, if there's clinicians out there listening, listen, know when you need to tell people no, you can't service them because you are in the way. Because sometimes you could be in the way and you might need to move them to another place to participate in therapeutic services. So yes, the stigma's there. We can reduce it by talking about it, making it more normalized, having more conversations about those women that look all put together. That's, you just said something, Michelle, that told there's a story. Most people wouldn't know I was a teenage mother and grew up in the hood and was doing all kind of other stuff. They don't know that, but they know it now because I share that and say, I had to journey to here. And to stay here, I go to a therapist at least once a month to be here. I can't serve you if I don't have someone that I'm being serviced by to make sure I stay sound. So reducing the stigma, thinking that only people with mental health are broken and bad and negative and can't function. No, we're all human trying to get through. And I need my therapist just like I need my gynecologist and my dentist and my orthodontist and my podiatrist. Like I need to address this whole body because my mind is in the body. It ain't sitting out over here. It's right here. So normalizing that we're addressing the body, just like the body of Christ. The body of Christ needs to tell people, get professional assistance and provide ways for them to receive it. So I would recommend on most websites that are church websites, resources to connect, the Grief Share, to connect, to Alliance, to connect. Like I would have it listed. So they ain't got to ask you because you already put it out here. That's just what I think.
No, I think that's a good point. I think even another on the other side of the coin is mental health professionals of color, like remaining professional. Because I think when you cross that line, and I say that because I had a therapist in my mini therapist, while I appreciated the camaraderie of our race and the things we could talk about in sessions, it also felt a little too homegirl, homeboyish. And I think sometimes as clinicians, we come into this space with a pure heart wanting to connect with our other clients, with our clients of color. But if we're not careful, we're disrupting the therapeutic process. We're also being unethical and we're enabling or disabling someone because you don't know how you transferring or counter transferring with your client is triggering them or appeasing them in a way. You just never know. So I think another way to reduce the stigma is that as clinicians we stay professional, not strict, not stringent, but professional. We bring our culture into the room, not allow our culture to take over the space so that we can be connected to this client. This client needs a professional, not another homegirl, homeboy.
Come on now.
I was literally gonna say professional about you. We here, Doc.
I'm trying to be like you, Doc.
Because it also goes back to people thinking that therapists are somebody to talk to. No, you're here to do some work. There are different strategies we're gonna use. There are different techniques we're gonna use. And I tell every client I got, I don't have a magic wand. If I did, I wouldn't be seeing you because I'd be a millionaire. So what we're working on, you have to do your part. Like we're not here to just talk. We're here to work. So understanding the role of a therapist and the role of the client and the therapeutic alliance and maintaining those professional boundaries, super important.
I love the way you just streamed that together. And I always say to clinicians that I'm like new clinicians, how you have the interns that are coming through, and I always say to them, use what you have as a strategic tool but don't be in the midst and using yourself to try to get connected. That's not what this is about. Connect to these strategies in this process, and let's get some work done and dig into the work. Now, I may make it look like homegirl hookup work, but I'm working with you in the process, because I'm telling you, you hit it on the head, Dr. Lloyd. This is your role, and I give you your description. This is my role, and I give you my description. And these are the strategies, and I give you that description. And when you stepping out of that, or I'm stepping out of that, it's time to step into a conversation about what we're doing differently, because this is not working. Good point.
Our last question for tonight. What can we do individually and collectively to bring about meaningful and long overdue change to improve outcomes in the lives of our Black community?
Consistency is key. I'll just say that. Everything that we're preaching, everything that we're talking and we're walking, the things that we're putting in place to try and break stigmas, it's consistency. Being able to maintain and having that staying power with what we're putting in place, making sure that people know this is it. This is the new thing. This is what we're going towards. This is our goal, and maintaining that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Consistent and persistent. We need to be persistent. I don't care for, and Bishop knows, I don't care for initiatives being started and then another initiative and then another initiative. Let's stick to one, which is this, and stick to that and follow it through. Like everyone on here, what I value about this conversation today, if a statement was made, someone else pulled it to make it connect. Close the loop. Let's close the loop on what we're saying we're doing. If we're saying we are providing an opportunity for you to have resources, let's close the loop on that. If we're saying we're talking about wellness and mental wellness, let's not make it the flavor of the week, the TikTok of the day. Let's make it what we say it is and stick to it. So stick-to-itiveness, I don't know, Michelle, that's a word. We added 2 words today. I don't know. Persistence, perseverance, and stick-to-itiveness. Stick to a plan and have it part of your mission of your environment. So if your church's mission is that, it should include that wellness is what we're looking as part of our mission. And if the wellness includes your mind, your body, and your spirit, it should include your mind, your body, and your spirit. I should be to see evidence of it in your ministry.
The fruit.
No, I think you're both spot on. And I think part of that is, as people of color, specifically Black people, reinstating what the word community means, because I think we've lost it a little bit. Granted, I mean, it is what it is. It was stolen from us. I'm gonna try to keep my militant hat low, but it was taken from us, and I don't think that we ever redefined it or reinstated it. We just latched on to the characteristics of independence and individuality that we've been taught in the Western world. So what one person calls community is not even, so how do we work collectively if we don't even have a working understanding of what community is? What does that really, really look like? And I think once we really, really look at what community looks like and what all of the work that is going to take to be in community, because being in community is work. Being in community is not, I just get to wash my hands of this. Being in community says that I am, shameless plug, I am my sister's keeper, Dr. Miles.
I like that.
Yes, Cleveland Gamma Rose Sorority Incorporated. But
okay.
But yeah, what is community? Because too many of us we have sayings. Everybody that's skinfolk ain't kinfolk. So what is community? And I think that we've lost a bit of that. And in order for us to heal, we have to redefine that for what it needs to be at this stage in life, or this stage in history, I guess.
I would have to chime in with you and say that it is a definite word for that, which is interdependence. You don't want someone that's just dependent on you, and you don't want people just standing over here independent. You want us to be in a community that are interdependent. I need you, you need me, we need each other. So it is a community effort. And if one falls, we all are falling, and we need to work on that. If I belonged to a church when I was in Buffalo where our pastor was like, everybody in here gonna be debt free. So when I moved to North Carolina, I was debt free, but everyone in my church was debt free. He was like, you know what? The church ain't gonna have a mortgage, so your mortgage about to get gone. It's not saying we're just looking to it. We have a tendency to go to the goal of the big thing and not a universal interdependent goal. What goal are we looking for everybody? And we want everybody to be holistically well. That's interdependence, which is community.
Yeah. So then how do we, because like I said earlier, I'm an applicable person and I'm thinking about the people on the line. So then how do we begin that process? And it's a rhetorical question,
It is.
Bishop Pickett, you're not a woman, but please, chime in. You lead a church, well, at least, never mind. But yeah, how do we begin that work? You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, we know we need to do this in theory and in truth, but how do we even begin that?
You're doing it, Michelle. You're on the panel talking about it. It's begun.
Okay.
I think it's the intentional conversation. It starts with the intentional conversation. And I think people knowing the heart of the leader, and wanting this to happen for the community, and then those that serving with the leader to have that same heart and desire for the people. I think one of the things that often happens is that we get people that's in leadership in church with their own mentality. They want to be built up. They want to be put on such a platform, and they forget that they're there to actually build the people up. So it's the complete reverse psychology that needs to happen within the church paradigm. And so that is the shift that I am trying to make within the church. And I'm just one man, but that is a shift that needs to happen in a lot of churches and a lot of organizations. Yes, you want to take care of your leader. I get that. But at the same time, your leaders should also be building the people up. And it's just not building you up, but giving you a word every Sunday. There's other things that your leaders should be doing as well. And this is one of the ways that I felt like, me as a leader, I saw mental health being one of the drastic things that wasn't being addressed. So I was like, I have to figure out a way how to address it. And everybody now is on social media. So let me do virtual platforms. I'm going to start with the men, and I'll do a women's one. But I also feel like I need to do one that's geared towards kids, or at least for parents to understand issues that kids are dealing with mental health. So that's going to be my next gear that I moved and shift to, because there's a lot of kids that's dealing with mental health issues. Suicide and depression. Some are even carrying grief, and parents are not able to recognize those signs, or if they are, they're oblivious to them. They're as Dr. Miles stated, they are showing up in different ways because the kids don't want to talk about it. So they're showing up in physical complaints, instead of actually parents being able to put something else and being able to help a psychiatrist or a psychologist diagnose it, or a therapist. And COVID-19 did a number on the kids too. Yes, it definitely significantly did. Kids got put in virtual school, and they ain't learned nothing. Let's be honest. Those kids didn't learn nothing those years they was in virtual school. They was just logging on. And so no point, pun intended, to any educator out there. You did your best with what you had and the resources that was giving you, but the kids were definitely left behind. And that social connection that they usually would have in school was basically stripped away within a drop of a hat. Dr. Lloyd, I saw you take off mute.
I was just going to say COVID-19, the backlash from COVID-19 is going to be years to come.
Generations.
My God. I still got a wait list from COVID-19 as a therapist. It's just, you're going to see it for a long time, the impact, not just the kids, but the parents as well. Like I said, for us, for instance, we were one, unfortunately, that lost family to COVID. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was my dad. So that was like, that was something that was so heavy. And my daughter, she was dealing with it. So she was dealing with it, like you said, you have those different complaints, somatic complaints and physical complaints with kids where they're not able to really tell you, or they don't want to tell you, because of the stress of everything else going on. I mean, it's a lot especially on the family front with COVID, that we're going to see for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we will see it for generations to come, and it's going to manifest in so many different ways that we can't even explain. And we do need to pinpoint what the impacts are. Like, we really need to look at those pressure points and say, either this is this child just acting out, or is this child acting out because of this? Because
Right.
if you lost someone, they also have lost someone.
Right.
And that social connection for children is imperative to their psychological, physiological, like everything is connected to that. Their development, I believe, is arrested at this point. Their development has been arrested and halted. And what do we do to replace that? And if you can't, and then you're wondering why they are so socially inept. You're wondering why they can't manage they're dysregulated, and you're trying to figure out why. Because you all out of whack, because you're TikTok focused and everything that you do is right here, but not here. You're not here in the world. It's amazing.
You'll be amazed to see how many children, because right now I'm counseling military affiliated children. How many elementary students, when you ask them now what they want to be when they grow up, they want to be a YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the number one career right now. And I'm just like, wow, COVID really did something on so many levels, family-wise.
Mm-hmm. You ain't kidding.
My granddaughter wanted to be a doctor all the time.
Yeah, my granddaughter wanted to be a doctor since she was 5. She's now 12. I had the nerve to tell my husband, well, I don't know if that's for me. I said, oh, the devil is a lie. Now hold on. Because you too busy with your text neck looking down that you don't forgot that we've instilled in you, not that you have to be a doctor, but that education is important, where it's like, well, I could be a YouTuber. I was like, girl, you don't lost your mind. That's not what we do. Nothing against YouTubers out here. I'm not saying there's something wrong, but you need to have some foundational. This is what's been lost. They don't want to do the foundational work anymore because everything is instantaneous. It's just here. I'm great and I'm popular. And every 2 seconds, I'm looking for a like. Mm-hmm. Every 2 seconds. Did you like me? Did you follow me? It's like, no, sit down.
The validation seeking from that. Oh,
yes.
Y'all been talking about that. How that ties into suicide and body dysmorphia and
come on,
self-esteem. Oh Lord.
And you notice how certain people don't realize this, that are not in our roles, but there are certain diagnoses that are associated with certain populations of people. So when you have more exposure to those people, you have more exposure to those diagnoses, which we weren't having anorexia nervosa. We weren't having bulimia in our communities because that's not what was going down. But now that we have more access, we weren't having the suicide levels that we were having until we started this exposure. Right. So with every global exposure, we are exposing ourselves to everything. And you need to be, I'll say this to the end of time. I should have a doctorate degree from Winston-Salem State University, because when my child was there, I had to tell them people, I'm going to treat y'all like the Taliban sitting on her lap and you're a threat. And you're messing with her mind. So I got to be here because you know what we do? We send our kids to colleges and then say they're adults and we can't speak on their behalf because we don't have access to their information. And they over on these campuses ill-equipped to handle all the stuff that's coming their way. This is passion for me, to the point that I tell every parent that's sending their kid to college, get a release of information form that goes for 5 years minimum so that you can speak on the behalf of your child, because they are still a child dealing with a lot of major adult grown folk psychological stuff, finances, educational issues, sexual orientation issues, trauma, violence, domestic violence. It's so much. I took a whole week off and was looking at my daughter going, oh, stop. This is what we got to stop. You got to go to the therapist. I got to talk to the therapist. I got to make sure you're going, and I got to call and make sure you attend it. And I got to make sure you have an actual conversation, not just sitting there. We, as Black families, have to engage our youth through past 25, because that brain ain't ready.
It's not
the oven is still on. Come on, Dr. Lloyd. The oven is still on because the brain ain't ready. Not at 25. It ain't getting ready. 25. It might just start getting ready, but parents need to be engaged. And because we also dealing with our own stuff, it's hard to do both. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do both. And I'm a clinician going, I'm in the psych ward with my 20-year-old. Jesus, this is real. I got to the point that the psychiatrist turned to me and said, you could be mom now because she's safe. I got her. I said, you're going to need to, because right now I'm clinician. Move out the way, because what you're saying ain't aligning with where I see she going to go. So I need to know that you're doing this. And he finally said to me, I'll never forget this. He said to me, Miss Jones, it's okay to be mom. And told my husband, who's 1970s man, when he kept saying she need to pull herself up by her bootstraps, and the therapist said, if she got on flip-flops, how's she going to pull herself up? Woo!
I'm on somebody.
Wow.
Stigma got to go.
Yes, it does.
Dr. Miles made a good point in the comments too. She said, for parents thinking there's no reason for their child to be stressed, anxious because they have everything. Like kids should just be kids. They shouldn't be having mental health issues. But kids most of the time have more mental health issues than adults.
Yes.
Every eye ain't shut, every door ain't closed, and every ear that ain't in earshot is not listening.
Right.
Come on, y'all. Kids know more than we give them credit for.
Yes, sir.
And they're experiencing more and engaging more. And you know what? They don't have everything. They have a lot of material things.
Yeah.
They are not equipped here or in their hearts or in their toolboxes to handle what's going on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think slight self-disclosure. My depression started at 11 when my parents divorced. I just thought I got sad sometimes, and unfortunately, my parents didn't know anything about mental health either. So when we talk about kids, and I put in the chat, like girls the age of 11 to 13 is still the fastest growing group of suicide ideation and suicide completion. Like that's the fastest group. No telling how much more issue it is for girls of color. So, you know, we have these spaces and we think, like we were talking about, we think an 11-year-old can't be depressed, but you don't know how the chemicals in the brain, like my dopamine doesn't, and we talked about sharing testimonies earlier. I take my Lexapro every morning and I am unashamed, you know, but I think that's part of debunking the stigma. More people need to be honest about, you know, I got to pop a pill in order not to go off on y'all right now. You know, pop a pill so that I hear only one voice and not too many, you know, like we got to be honest and stop trying to hide these things like we've been talking about this whole time. But anyway, yeah, children, I think children experience mental health concerns. I even would say at a higher rate than adults because they're so sensitive. They're like sponges, so they're soaking everything up, and they don't know how to always decipher between what they should soak up, what they shouldn't. Like the old time people say, let it go in one ear and let the what you don't need.
They don't have the filter capacity. Their filter is not there.
Yeah, they're not in the developmental stage for that. So what, like we have to pay more attention.
Michelle, I don't want to skip over this because I'm real key. When I know as a clinician what suicidal ideation is, and I know what suicidal completion is, so please explain that because there's some people in here that don't know.
Okay. From my knowledge and clinicians, you know, I'm still in school, so I'm gonna push back.
That's one to answer.
But suicide ideation is when you're having, to my knowledge, when you're having thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore, possibly even a plan in passing. Suicide completion is when you are no longer here. You have completed what you planned. You have your family has been notified, all of that. Because I think when we use the word suicide, it's a different way that we say suicide. It's actually kind of diminishing the person. So I say suicide completion. But suicide ideation is when you're having thoughts that you don't want to be here anymore. You may be even having dreams of how you want to go or how you plan to go. So things like that. I can't be here anymore. So yeah, that's my understanding.
You got some that'll do attempt.
Right.
That too.
Right. That's right. And we must not forget, it takes energy to actually attempt a suicide. So they're usually in a higher state of being. They're usually a little happier. They're not heavily depressed at that moment. That's when you need to be paying attention. It's like they're having a good day. Well, that person was having a good day and they killed themselves. It takes energy to complete.
Yep.
And we miss it because we expect them to be depressed and heavily and in bed and can't move. No.
Sometimes,
thank you for that.
even when we're circling around back to, what the church can do, like knowing the signs of what it looks like when I see a child with the semicolon tattoo, I know what that means. Like
Mhm.
knowing what it looks like when someone has attempted suicide, and then being not evasive, or not invasive, but just attentive to paying attention to that child. Come on, youth pastors, what we doing?
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
it's on
And
you.
do we know what that means? We do, but let's talk
Yeah.
about what the semicolon means, what signs to look for. Let's
Yep.
talk about when they're on social
Exactly.
media considering group suicide. I had a niece and I called my sister, was like, hey, I'm on Facebook and I saw some stuff that didn't look right. And
Yep.
it was a group suicide attempt.
Mm.
Trading pills, and I'll meet you here. And then, you got to read between the lines now. We got to read between the lines.
Mhm.
We are definitely going to have the next panel to talk about children and their mental health. Tonight was very awesome. I want to thank you, ladies, for joining the panel. It was awesome conversation, a deep dive into mental health and the church experience women's edition. And I want to really just say thank you for giving up almost 2 hours of your night to do this panel, and to our watchers and listeners online. Thank you for tuning in tonight. It was really appreciative. There was a lot of comments in the comments section, and stay tuned for more topics like this that will be coming soon. Also, we stream our live church services every Sunday at 3 p.m. and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.